Hi, welcome to Exploring the Illusion of Free Will. My name is George Ortega, and this is episode number 133. We originally taped this August 1st, but we're retaping it on September 19th, okay? But I'm still, putting it chronologically as 133, all right? So whatever. So the title of this episode is How Free Will Belief Invites Arrogance. Arrogance is not good. Arrogance is like the idea that some people, when you're feeling arrogant, you're feeling that you're better than other people, more deserving of whatever, and it's a loathsome emotion. It's a hateful emotion. It's a very bad emotion because it separates people, It's the opposite of like egalitarianism where everybody's truly equal and everyone is equally respected, without this hierarchy, this nonsensical hierarchy, whatever. Okay. So before we get into that, I just want to I want to talk about the benefits, I guess, first of overcoming this illusion of free will. Actually, I'm not going to talk about it because this is the topic. All right. So first I want to define what people mean when they say they have free will. Then I'll refute it a bit. Then I'll talk a bit about why this topic is important or how important this is, and then we'll get into this. All right, so basically when people say they have free will, they're saying that they and other people are, I'm going to do this in terms of morality, fundamentally morally responsible for what they do. I'm not saying pragmatically, I'm not saying we don't hold others or ourselves responsible, because we have to do that to maintain law and order, we need rules, we need these moral precepts, kind of like to condition us. It's operant conditioning, it's based in psychology. When we have certain rewards, people will be more likely to be a certain way or to do certain things because of the reward. And when we have certain punishments, people will be more likely to avoid doing certain things or saying certain things, whatever, because of those punishments. So basically, that's pragmatic moral responsibility. So, we assume that, okay? We assume that for ourselves and others. We hold others responsible, quote unquote. But what I'm saying, the free will belief says we're fundamentally morally responsible. Now, the idea is if we have no choice but to do what we do, we're absolutely compelled. It's not up to us at all. We're not fundamentally responsible. That's the thing. We're pragmatically, in other words, if God, let's say we want to, see this through the lens of theology. If God is making us do everything we do, God is fundamentally responsible. In religion, we give God thanks for the good we do. Something good happens, we say thank God. Somebody survives the operating room. A lot of times people don't thank the doctors, they thank God. But you see the inconsistency between thanking God for the good and not blaming God for the bad. So basically, all right. So that's the kind of moral definition of free will. The more logical, more basic definition is to have a free will is that if we had one, we could do, think, feel, say whatever we wanted to without having anything that's not in our control making us do those things. It's the issues of control. If our unconscious is where we store our memories, our data, and if the data for what we decide is stored in the unconscious, obviously the processing must be stored in the unconscious. So it's the unconscious that's really acting, doing, thinking, deciding for us, and then making us conscious of what we decide. And our unconscious is by definition something we're not aware of, and obviously it's something we're not in control of. So if the unconscious is making all our decisions, obviously that demonstrates we don't have free will. But the most basic definite refutation of free will is that everything has a cause. Now, to understand this, the cause must always precede the effect. So if you decide something and it has a cause, that means the cause came before what you decided. And if everything has a cause, then there's a cause to that cause, and there's a cause to that cause. And these causes, these causal antecedents regress back in time to before we're born. So obviously, if we have a chain of cause and effect that started way before we were born, ultimately resulting in whatever we do, that's not free will. We're just being compelled in that way. Okay. So how important this is? I gotta this is like a very, very cool fact. There's this guy, John Searle, and in 2010 they did a survey of the most cited post-1900 philosophers in the world. People who were born, philosophers who were born after 1900, they wanted to rank them in terms of how often they were cited by other philosophers in their papers and books and all. So this guy, John Searle, an American philosopher, was ranked 13th in this list, okay, 2010. So he's not just another philosopher, okay? So like, what does he say about this question? He was asked for a book to comment on the prospect of free will being shown to the world, being accepted by the world as an illusion. What would that mean? He said, if that were to happen, quote, it would be a bigger revolution in our thinking than Einstein or Copernicus or Darwin or Galileo or Newton. I got the order a bit wrong, whatever. It will alter our whole conception of our relation with the universe, unquote. This is big. There's nothing bigger. I mean, if somebody invented a happy pill that blissed everyone out, that would be bigger. If somebody contacted aliens, that might be bigger. If somebody found a pill or a way to make everyone really, really good to kind of like, to ramp up our conscience so we didn't do so much evil, so much wrong, that will probably be bigger. But these things haven't happened. So this overcoming this completely delusional way of seeing the world is the biggest thing that has ever happened in human history. It's really cool. And so like, all right, so, and again, it may take years or decades for it to really, really be accepted, but it's already reached the tipping point where it's pretty much destined to happen. If civilization is here 10, 20 years from now, people will get this. But all right, so now some people might say, well, this guy Searle doesn't believe in free will, so he's just touting his own kind of like recognition of that, just saying it's important because whatever, self-serving kind of thing. The key thing about this is Searle believes he's got a free will, all right? So he believes he's got a free will, and he understands that disproving free will, is like the biggest thing that has ever happened on the planet. Okay, so all right, so now let's get to the topic. Okay, how free will invites arrogance. Again, as I said, arrogance is just not a good feeling. It just like, it separates people from other people. It's not that you can't feel good when you do good, right? But like, you feel good, you feel grateful, you attribute the goodness to luck or to God or whatever, but to the extent that you don't attribute it to yourself, then you maintain your humanity, you maintain your humility, so anyway, so let's explore some of the reasons people become arrogant. Okay. Sometimes they think they've done something better than others. If they're an athlete, they can run faster, swim faster, throw farther, whatever it is, and clearly, nobody's disputing that there isn't a hierarchy in terms of like how fast people can run and how strong people are in lifting weights and all that. Yes, but does that make them better? No, to the extent that like people feel they're better than others because of that they can do things better than others, that's arrogance. Another thing that kind of like leads people to arrogance is sometimes when people are born, because you're really pretty much born with this, I mean, there's a little developmental part of it, but like intelligence, sometimes when people are born more intelligent than others, they think that they're superior to others, fundamental superior, they're deserving of more respect and all this stuff. And it's classic arrogance. No, you're not responsible for how intelligent you are or even how educated you are. Because like, if you're born to certain parents in a certain region of the country, your education will reflect that. And that wasn't up to you, okay? You're lucky to have been educated like to that extent. So it doesn't make you any better than anyone else. And again, if you're, in another part of the world where you don't have those advantages, you shouldn't feel lesser than other people that have those advantages, okay? So, all right, so intelligence and education sometimes can make us feel arrogant. Sometimes people who are more physically attractive, you ever notice that on the street? Sometimes people who are physically attractive will walk around with this attitude, and it's clearly an attitude of like, I'm physically attractive, I know it, and like, they look down on other people. It's just, it's obnoxious. It's really obnoxious. And so like now here's the thing with physical attractiveness, everybody knows that that's not up to the person, right? You're born with whatever degree of attractiveness or not you have, right? And attractiveness is to a great extent subjective anyhow, but that, but nonetheless, that they kind of like, maybe as a result of this free will thing, I don't get it, but they ascribe it to themselves, and they use it as a reason to kind of like, quote unquote, to feel better than others, all right? Another reason for arrogance is sometimes people make more money than other people, okay? And all of a sudden they think they're something special. They think, wow, I was born to a certain family, raised in a certain way, made certain connections, went to certain schools, was born with a certain intelligence, certain abilities, maybe a certain business savvy. I made a lot of money. That makes me better. I think Donald Trump is somebody that comes to mind. I think he has that attitude. There are others. But again, it's divisive. It's just like, it's not good for the person. It makes other people dislike the person. It makes the person dislike other people. And it just like, it creates more separation in the world. More people are just not as together as we could be because of things like this. So more money, And some people finally, this is ironic because like, you have like some clergy, like some rabbis, some priests, ministers, whatever. They think that they're, if they're more moral, if they're behaving more moral, according to their precepts, whatever, which may or may not be subjective, that makes them better people. So there are a lot of ways that we kind of like compare ourselves to others, and like to the extent that we find ourselves being a certain way that exceeds what others are, then we kind of like, to the extent we attribute a free will to ourselves, we say, well, I did this, it was my doing, my free will, and I'm better, and I deserve the credit and all that, and I deserve this manner of like over-respect and over-consideration and all that because of this, okay? So you can see how it creates problems, that's not the kind of world we want. Okay, so now, how would all this change to the extent we overcame this belief in free will? All right, well, think about it. Actually, athletes sometimes like give us a clue of this. Sometimes when an athlete has done something really great, let's say has caught a lot of passes in a football game, or has like, pitched a no-hitter, or has won the Stanley Cup or something. Some athletes will say, well, I thank God. I thank God that I was lucky enough to be able to play well, to be able to do good. Because these guys, they recognize it wasn't up to them. They recognize that they have good days, they have bad days. Other teammates have good days and bad days. The other team has good days and bad days. And even their talents, they've probably recognized throughout their lives that like, they didn't of their own free will make themselves, let's say, run faster than others or catch balls faster, whatever, or better. They have this kind of like understanding, and that's how the world would change. In other words, to the extent that that we get that free will is an illusion, we're not going to place ourselves above others, just consider ourselves superior, better, and the world will be much more egalitarian. It'll be more, people will feel more comfortable with each other. This generation, like 3 decades ago, people had more friends. People had, I think, maybe 3 or 4 good friends. Today it's down to maybe 1. So we've gotten isolated, alienated from each other. And I think this arrogance thing, this competition that is drilled into our psyche from kindergarten, is part of it, All right, so the extent we overcome free will, we overcome that. Okay. Yeah, so what happens, all right, so we recognize we didn't create ourselves, okay? If we've got these abilities, if we're smarter, you know, if we're more attractive, if we had certain skills, that's not up to us. We were lucky, you know. Some people are better than us at whatever. They're lucky. Some people are worse than us at whatever. They're, in certain cases, unlucky. You know, and what's interesting about this is, like, you know, actually the only, you know, before doing this show, I did a series on happiness, over 130 shows. And really, like, whether you're better at others, at whatever, is really inconsequential, because the only thing that really matters is happiness. So to the extent that you kind of like master happiness, that you're happy, then none of the rest of this matters. In other words, like, it doesn't matter whether other people, you know, feel they're better, or whether you feel you're better, or whatever. I mean, in other words, what I'm trying to say, there's some people who just like have pretty much failed at everything except they're really, really happy. And in a certain sense, they're much more successful than people who've kind of like succeeded at everything, but they've been so competitive, so focused on defeating their adversaries and their, you know, competitors, that they haven't been able to find happiness. You know, they're so consumed with competition, they're not happy. That's not a very fortunate individual, you know. So again, all right. So what happens to the extent we overcome the free will belief? Our arrogance yields to gratitude. You know, if you do well in school, feel grateful that you have good teachers. Feel grateful that somebody instilled in you a thirst for learning. Feel grateful that you were taught how to read, how to do math, how to do whatever. Feel grateful that you were, you know, born with a certain level of intelligence. You know, that you were like, you know, in other words, like everything, all these things that people with free will attribute to themselves and lead them to feel arrogant about what they do. To the extent that we overcome that illusion, we replace it with gratitude. And gratitude, incidentally, going back to the happiness thing, there are some like interventions that are used to help people become happier, and some recent researchers recommend, for example, a gratitude journal, to the extent, like, let's say every day you write 5 things down that you're grateful for. You know, in a few weeks you'll find that that's made you happier. You know, so like gratitude is important. Okay, so, and the key thing is like arrogance separates people. Okay, now, so like, I'm gonna end like, you know, I used to have a co-host and I was talking about, well, whatever. Basically, I like, go back to this, I like to have fun with this because this is so cool. Go back to the Searle quote, okay? You know, like, our world overcoming the illusion of free will is a bigger revolution in our thinking than Einstein, Copernicus, Darwin, Newton, and Galileo, right? Okay, now, the meaning of that is like, you know, in other words, like Einstein, these guys are credited with something, right? With a revolution in our thinking. So like what I'm trying to present is like what I've been doing over the last 3 years, pretty much single-handedly. Like part of what I'm doing is to get other people to do this. So like to the extent other people get involved and people write magazine articles about this, I mean, that's a necessary part of why I'm doing this. But like essentially, like before I started doing this, I actually started doing this in 2007, and actually before that, but mainly in 2010 by starting this meetup in Manhattan and just getting the word out, just creating a buzz. I gotta do some advertising. So what I did is like, I knew that like the people, like, I live in White Plains, but like Manhattan has 1.5 million people in Manhattan, but it's got, through the tri-state area, people who actually are within the geographical surroundings of Manhattan, and they go to these meetups or they at least look at them. There's 22 million people around this New York metropolitan area, okay? So my strategy was like to get, you know, to start a meetup. The original title was The Predetermined Will Society, Busting the Free Will Myth, okay? Now I knew that that very few people would actually join my meetup because there's very few people that are so interested in philosophy. But I knew that like millions of people would, as they searched for meetups in Manhattan, because I based it at between Madison and Fifth Avenue on 56th, between 55th and 56th Street, right in Midtown Manhattan. I knew that a lot of people would look for meetups there, and they'd just encounter this, like, busting the free will myth. It's now called exploring illusion of free will, whatever. So like, so they, puts the thought in their mind. They talk about it with people. Other people talk about it with people. So anyway, like since then, this has led to like a revolution. It's been magazines like New Scientist, the British Science Weekly, and Scientific American Mind have both had cover stories, first ever cover stories refuting free will. This is all after this. Sam Harris, the 3 times best-selling New York Times author, published a book refuting free will. Okay, so like, and there's a lot's been going on over the last few years. Now, all right, I made this happen. I intended to make this happen because like I promoted happiness before this, and I kind of knew how to like just get people talking about it, get people thinking about it. So like, this is like, so in a certain sense, like, I'm kind of like doing something greater than Einstein and Copernicus and Galileo and Newton and Darwin, okay? I'm basically leading the world to a fundamentally new consciousness, okay? Now here's the thing. Now, I get that we don't have a free will, right? So there's an irony here. I mean, like, for me to kind of like feel arrogant or boastful for what I'm doing, I feel good about it. It feels great. But for me to kind of like, be arrogant, that would be as if I was missing the entire point of what I was doing, I mean, like, in other words, like, I'm doing this greatest thing ever, but I don't kind of like treat people like with disrespect. I don't kind of like dress in a certain way to kind of like elevate myself or talk in a certain way, So what I'm trying to say is like, to the extent that we recognize that even the greatest things that we do are not up to us, then we don't become arrogant. We don't kind of like compare ourselves with each other. We're just lucky, that's it. It's all about luck. Okay, that's everything, luck, unluck, whatever. All right, I want to do some commercials. I'm out of material. See, if I had a free will, I'd have done this better and I'd have more to talk about, but that's all right. We've got about 4.5 minutes. All right, this show is on in White Plains, New York, on Wednesdays at 7:30 and every Thursday at 9 p.m., okay? Channel 76 on Cablevision, and if you get Fios in White Plains and some of the surrounding areas like Scarsdale and Ardsley and Tarrytown and a few other towns and villages, on Fios they present it on Channel 45, okay, every week. So I do this, and then like I used to do this with a co-host who also produces our Manhattan show. I'll get to that in a minute. But then, some of these episodes that we do together, like on like maybe 2 or 3 a month, are also presented on Manhattan's cable TV station MNN, and that goes out to like about 600,000 cable subscribers in Manhattan. Not everyone watches the show, right? But and so like, but the other show we have is like my co-host Anel lives in Manhattan, right? And so he produces our second show, and it's we I mean, it's supposed to be a live show, but we are only going live every month or so. But that's on 11 o'clock every Wednesday, Eastern Standard Time. And like, again, with this show, if you don't happen to live in White Plains and you want to see them in real time, just go to the White Plains Cable Access television, just their website, and you can access their website. If you go to Exploring Illusion Free Will, my website, there's a direct link right on the home page to the live feed, all right? So you can see this show live when it comes on. You can also see the Manhattan show live, through the computer. Again, there's a link to that website from my site. Okay, and then like, cause like if you catch us during one of the weeks that we're live, you know, like we've had people call from Texas. This guy called twice from Texas, from you know other states and all. So like, you know, call, ask us a question, just make a statement. It's kind of like a debate show. That's kind of fun. Okay, the meetup that I referred to, I started it on, when was it? April 7th, I think, 2010. And I told you that's in the Sony Plaza on Madison Avenue, 550. And that takes place every first Saturday of the month. And it's a great group. We usually get maybe like 6 or 7 of us, maybe 5 or, you know, depends. But like last month was probably the best group ever. We started at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's when they all start. And by 8 o'clock, there were 4 of us still there talking. So it was very cool. Then I started another meetup here in White Plains called Life After Free Will. Originally, I titled it Outgrowing the Free Will Illusion, I think. And the Free Will Fairy Tale. I wanted to give it a bit of an edge, but then I felt guilty about it. See, like, you know, like I recognize that I have free will, but I recognize that may have rubbed people the wrong way, so I changed it. I didn't blame myself, but that doesn't mean that I, you know, didn't like correct my behavior or whatever to the extent that it was wrong. So anyway, that's like, we're having a meeting tonight, but you won't be seeing this whatever till when. But like it's on the 3rd Thursday of every month at the Barnes & Noble here at the City Center in White Plains, New York. Okay, I published a book called Exploring Illusion Free Will. It's a 2nd edition. If you go on Amazon or on Barnes & Noble, you can order from there. I think it's like $6.99. And I also put it on Kindle. You know, I published it through Kindle, so like it's for $1 you can download it. Because my purpose, you know, $6.99 was the least amount that I could charge, all right? So this is not about making money. It's about like getting the word out. And I just read the book actually for the first time after writing it over the last couple of days, and it's extremely repetitive, but it's very good. The repetition is necessary because like these ideas are very kind of like novel to most people, you know. All right, well, I hope you understand why free will belief invites arrogance, and I'll be back in other episodes to explain why free will is an illusion. Thanks for watching.